Conversations across time. 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 Conversations across time.
Welcome to Conversations Across Time, the television show that allows you, the audience, to witness conversations that might have occurred between interesting personalities. Back with us again for the third week, which is a record for us, we have, of course, my co-host and friend, former State Representative Babette Josephs. Welcome, Babby.
Thank you, my pleasure.
And seated next to Representative Josephs is Justice Oliver Wendall Holmes. I thank you so much for returning.
Thank you for having me.
Seated next to Justice Holmes is the legendary and well-respected 19th century poet, Elizabeth Barrett-Browning. Thank you so much for returning.
It's lovely to be back, thank you.
And of course, seated next to Ms. Browning is the legendary poet, rap artist, actor, and social commentator, Mr. Tupac Shakur. Welcome, Mr. Shakur.
Thank you for having me back. Wasn't sure y'all were gonna let me back. I appreciate it.
Oh no, we aim to have spirited conversation here, so we are most pleased to have you back.
I know, you and I both know the only reason I got to come back on the show is because the host is black, but okay.
Oh, no, it's because you're dead.
There you are.
That stings. That hurts right here. Each bullet hole.
Sorry. So what we want to do is we were talking to Justice Holmes about some decisions that he made, and one of the things that we touched a little bit upon was campaign financing. We have so much to cover, but I do know that there was something that you were wanting to say, Representative Josephs, regarding free speech and how money impacts free speech.
Well, certainly money, if you equate it with speech, you have a government, which is what we have now, which is run by people who are rich. People who can get together enough money to influence elections. And it's interesting, I suppose, that what Justice Holmes might or might not have found the same way for the Bipartisan Campaign Reform Act, which is what the Citizens United
Overturned.
Well, they overturned part of it, not a lot of it, but they overturned a part of it which allowed anonymous money to flow into some corporations that are making supposed policy decisions, but which really influence elections. It's very interesting how the First Amendment was interpreted in that decision, and there's now a lot of pressure, I think, on Congress to correct that decision legislatively.
Yes, Ms. Josephs, I would not be opposed to Congress enacting legislation that would limit speech as far as campaign contributions, but I do object to your talking about rich people governing the country, and that's where we are now. The fact is that if in the evolutionary process, rich people rise to the top and become leaders and movers and shakers, that's perfectly all right. There's nothing wrong with that. And
spoken by someone who comes from a class like that, of course.
And spoken by someone who, let's, because there's a topic that we must get to tonight, and I want to talk a little bit about eugenics. I want to talk about a decision that you made, Justice Holmes, in 1924, I believe. And this decision had to do with a young woman who was 24. She wasn't 24. She was I believe 18, and she was committed to the State Institute. I'm looking for my notes on this. but she was committed to the State Institute for Epileptics and the feeble-minded.
Feeble-minded in Virginia.
In Virginia. And you know, of course, the case that I'm speaking of
Yes.
is Buck versus Bell.
Yes.
And Carrie Buck was raped. And as a result of the rape, became pregnant, gave birth to and it was determined that her intellect was determined that she was 9 years old in terms of mentally. And her mother was also mentally challenged. And she gave birth to a child. And you made a statement which essentially, and I'm paraphrasing here, said that if we could call on the best of our society to fight, to give their lives in war to fight for this country, then certainly we had the right to call upon the feeble-minded who actually sapped the strength of this country to be sterilized. And the quote that you're most remembered for is that because this girl's mother and she and her baby were determined to be feeble-minded, that's the language that they used. I believe that you said that 3 generations of imbeciles is enough.
I did say that.
Do you know why 3 generations of imbeciles is enough?
I'd love to hear your take on that, Mr. Shakur.
I'm going to tell you why. Because 3 generations of imbeciles were not the kind of imbeciles that they wanted to exploit. Now, these very same people said that generation after generation after generation of black folks was feeble-minded, but they didn't seem to have a problem with letting black people keep reproducing because black people were free and then cheap labor and then cannon fodder. So that's really what this is all about, which is why I keep trying to tell y'all that none of this shit is real. But go ahead.
It is real, but well said.
But what I wonder is why make the assumption that somebody, whatever feeble-mindedness is a drag on society. Maybe people like that are here so we can learn to exploit the best part of ourselves. Maybe there's a reason why people are different from each other in many different ways.
That's beautiful.
And maybe it is not the best idea to make an 18-year-old girl sterile. It's a horrible thing.
And what's interesting about that is that this decision, Justice Holmes, this decision, I mean, it's still on the books in some states. When I was a law student in Delaware, and I graduated law school in 1978, the laws for sterilization was still the law of Delaware. Now, that's not that long ago when you stop and consider. And the way that the attorney for the state described this family, and I wonder how you would feel about this. He described the Buck family as shiftless, ignorant, and from the worthless class of anti-whites. Now this young lady was white, but he is describing, this is counsel for the defendant. He's describing her as from a shiftless and ignorant and worthless class of people.
And and what was her last name?
Yeah, that's right. Her last name was Buck.
Man, that's perfect. I couldn't have wrote it no better myself. Buck. Buck.
I understand.
Well, we're missing a point here. First of all, does the state have a right to pass such a law? What right?
Certainly not.
Why not? For the betterment of mankind, for
Why
the betterment
does that
of
make it better?
Because as I am quoted, as Ms. Crawford quoted me, 3 generations of imbeciles is certainly enough.
I don't understand why. I mean, first of all, imbecile is a very loaded word. We're talking about people perhaps who are mentally retarded, but who knows whether they were even that much.
If I were
since
writing,
they were so shiftless and trashy to begin
if I were
with.
writing the opinion today, I would have to amend it to say 3 generations of mentally challenged people, but it doesn't matter,
Makes
right?
a big difference.
But you would reach the same conclusion. Now, what
Absolutely.
I find interesting, Justice Holmes, this is particularly interesting to me, that this is the theory, eugenics is the same theory that the Nazis used when they were exterminating those people that they viewed as worthless to society.
I don't understand.
As Nietzsche said, great minds think alike.
Man,
Oh.
okay, so here we go again. I don't know why we keep arguing about this or talking about it even, because I keep trying to explain that we're pretending some things are real that are not real. But I'm gonna let that slide for right now and just focus on this one thing. This is not about the Nazis. It's not about what the rationale was. This is some power shit. In fact, the last time we were here on the other episode,
Yes.
you mentioned Vincent Vinny. The guy, he's where's the road? Vinny.
Scalia.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh, Vincent.
Yeah, somebody's cousin. I know he's somebody's cousin. Look here. So
You mean Justice Scalia?
He's Justice Scalia.
Man,
You call him Vinny, but that's really insulting.
You can call him Justice Scalia if you want to. That motherfucker is the coldest thug of the last 50 years. And
Mr.
he's
Shakur,
so cold, y'all don't even recognize he's thugging. That's thug life right there all day.
I'm not of your generation, but the language in this room is appalling. In my social class, we don't use those type of words.
I bet you what. So you trying to say the whole time that you was sitting in the Porcellian Club, y'all never used no untoward, unsavory language?
No, we never did.
In the high order of the man, that's bullshit. You
You
can't.
want to hear about Vinny or Justice Scalia, who thinks of himself as a great defender of the First Amendment. You should look at whose First Amendment is he defending. And it is much more likely, I forget the statistic, more than 3/4 more likely that Scalia will support the First Amendment rights of somebody who is speaking from the right, someone who is as conservative as he is. When you're speaking from the left, Justice Scalia is not so interested in your First Amendment rights.
And with that,
And I don't know whether that was Justice Holmes' problem
Well,
too, but I think it might have been.
it very well might have been. And what we're going to do now is we're going to take a break and we're going to come back, because when you start bringing up Justice Scalia and Uncle Clarence Thomas, I really
You said that,
think
not me.
I really think we need to talk about that. So please stay tuned, come back, and hear the rest of this very controversial conversation across time. Thank you.
So here I am, waiting for a bus on a street corner when my friend Vivian drives by in a car and says, Babette, I want you. I need you. So I thought, sure. And I had a card with me, my business card. I gave it to her, and I thought, I probably won't hear from Vivian again for a while. But right away, she emailed me, she called me, and now I'm doing her concept, which is really, really interesting.
during the break, I was chastised very gently for my reference to Justice Vincent Scalia, and his sidekick, Uncle Clarence Thomas.
Man, fuck Clarence Thomas. First, okay.
Young man, please.
No, okay. I'm not even.
He's
I'm
a justice of the Supreme Court.
Because hold on a second. You want to be a gentleman. You want to be a gentleman. Let's start here. Let's start here. First off, everybody knows that there were allegations that Clarence Thomas made inappropriate advances toward a member of his staff, and me, myself, personally, I think that motherfucker did it, and rape is wrong, and you don't get to do that shit. If a woman ain't trying to kick it to you, you need to leave that bitch alone and move on, find yourself some woman who is genuinely interested in spending some quality time with you if you want to have adult time. That's what you need to do. So fuck him. I don't believe in raping women. That shit is bullshit and it's state violence.
And it's
I agree.
I agree. And Mr. Shakur, you may have said it in much more colorful language than I would have articulated, but certainly the sentiment is there. And I think that the use of raw language to discuss Uncle Thomas is definitely appropriate. I feel very strongly about the fact that he's sitting in the Thurgood Marshall seat. It bothers me. It bothers me when this man was confirmed against all of the allegations and testimony. I believed Anita. I believed Anita Hill.
I believed her too.
Because who the fuck gonna make up some shit like that? Is that some?
Well,
this
we
is
can
this
thank
is.
the late Arl Inspector for mishandling that entire.
Man, fuck Arl Inspector too.
They're all dead. It's all right.
But you know, I mean, and I thought that it was a shame for someone who I respected, and that was Arl Inspector, to be known now and only remembered by me for what he did in that case. It's very sad. But let us get back to the notion of eugenics, because Justice Holmes, we know that you wrote as much as you did because you had a very heightened opinion of yourself, and you did have a good, you had a good mastery of the English language. Unlike, very much like Mr. Scalia, Justice Scalia. I think that when I see this man, he so much reminds me of an arrogant, puffed up shell of a man who has allowed himself to be condescending to everyone else that he serves with. I think he thinks he's smarter than the rest of the world.
Oh, he does.
And so,
and his opinions are more than most justices, more than most judges, result-oriented. He does not follow any principle that anybody is able to discern. If he likes, for instance, if he likes the speech, he invokes the First Amendment. If he doesn't like the speech, he doesn't. That's no way for justice to act.
And you as a poet, I mean, do you have, I just tend to think of writers as having some love for the First Amendment. Even though you're not a subject of the United States, the fact is, free speech.
It affects all of us.
Yes.
One of the things I would like to point out is that the dear Justice was not known necessarily for all of the wonderful things he wrote, but by the amount. It was quantity, not quality necessarily, in my thinking.
So you basically trying to say that he wrote a whole bunch of opinions, but they were real short, so they don't count?
I'm saying that they don't count in my world.
I mean, he wrote 873 opinions.
Many of my opinions are still used as precedent in the court today.
That means nothing to me, sir.
But some of them that finally aren't are these eugenic ones. And almost every state in the country had a eugenics law after you allowed that and made that, I have to say, imbecilic statement about imbeciles.
Man, they still, I keep trying to tell y'all acting like eugenics is over. Man, you go to any ghetto in America, eugenics ain't stopped. Well, okay, so let me ask you this.
It's no longer official government policy.
No, it's absolutely official government policy, and I'm gonna tell you why. So you take these people, right, who got a history, a legacy of being uneducated, not because they didn't want to learn, but because they would be killed for learning. Okay? So you start there, and then you throw all of these people together in this one little confined area, and if they try to leave, then you arrest them or you beat them. So now that they don't leave, and now that they can't leave, and now that they don't know anything, right? So then you put them in these schools, and then the schools are underfunded. They're underfunded, they don't have enough teachers, they got too many students, the teachers are scared, and there's plenty of guns available in the community, but it ain't no books because all the books are hand-me-down books, and then the books are falling apart. And then you take all of these same people, and then you make laws so that all the things that they do are punished more than all the same laws that the white people are breaking in a different way. Right. And then you're going to tell me that all of that, with the disparities in the sentencing for powder cocaine and crack cocaine, and the disparities between the educational system, and then the disparities between the freedom of movement. But you're saying it's not official government policy, and all of those are official policies, and that's eugenics. But that's eugenics, though.
And we agree, at least I do. I understand the point that you're making.
I would call that
it's the new Jim Crow law.
But how is it not eugenics? How is it not eugenics? Oh, wait.
It is.
If we used eugenics and we followed the principle of 3 generations, maybe we would have less of a population that was not sufficiently educated, not sufficiently trained, and therefore society would be better. It's the survival of the fittest.
Cheap labor come from?
This shit ain't for survival of the fittest, it's survival of the well-positioned.
You know what
Well, why are they well positioned? Because they're more fit. That's social Darwinism.
So you think that you got into it?
I want to say this because this is interesting.
Whose show is this, anyways?
No, this is social Darwinism, which is exactly where eugenics comes from.
Exactly.
That's how. This is how this evolved because William Goodell, who was Charles Darwin's half-cousin, is the one who came up with and named this theory that we're talking about, eugenics. So you're absolutely correct. And what I have to say, Mr. Shakur, is that I certainly know, I agree with you. I hear exactly what you're saying, and I recognize that perhaps you say it in ways that inflame, but the reality is nevertheless true.
I'm just trying not to waste time. If you tell me, okay, fine. Then tell me what eugenics is. First, tell me what eugenics is, and then tell me how it ain't eugenics. What is eugenics? What is that?
She just agreed with you.
It don't matter, but what is it, though?
We're eliminating from procreation the most unfit in society. If the state, if the people of the state and the state legislators decide they're unfit, then it makes society better. And we all benefit from a more productive and more humane society that way.
And what I hear
to
take
incredulous people and deprive them of the right to have children. That's
no, but humane. You know what? But Representative Joseph, here's what he's saying. Here's what's happening. Eugenics might not be happening in policy, but it is happening in practice.
I agree.
And simply because if you have these disparities in sentencing, if you have so much of the African American population incarcerated, if you have those that are not incarcerated, null and voided by some other things, by drug abuse, all of the things that are visited upon that community, in effect, you may not have a policy of eugenics, but you certainly do have the practical effects of eugenics.
I agree.
But why are we even talking about drug abuse?
She just agreed with you.
I'm changing the topic. Give me that.
Change the topic.
Damn.
I thought you were against
So
violence.
that ain't violence. She hit me with the fan. I'm preventing her from causing more violence. What I'm doing is the greatest good for the greatest number, especially the greatest number that includes my hands and arms. So now look here. What I'm trying to tell you, if you will understand, is this. You want to talk about drug abuse now. How is it abuse? Just because you not high? Is that why you mad? Because as far as I know, the people who's abusing drugs, they ain't hardly ever causing no problems till they run out. And then if the drugs wasn't priced so high because they're illegal, they wouldn't be running out. Do you know? Hold on, because this is easy.
Can we talk about prescription drugs? Can we throw in all of the people who are addicted to prescription drugs?
Let's talk about, if we're going to talk about the people who are addicted to prescription drugs, let's talk about the people who are addicted to prescription drugs only because the drug that would actually help them is illegal. Now, this is what I'm trying to tell you, because none of this shit is real. It's not about whether it's right or wrong. People want to talk about drugs like drugs is bad. Drugs ain't never hurt nobody by themselves. What hurts people is the situation that they in where they need the drugs. So if you done had all of your friends get shot and you didn't see it happen,
that's
okay?
ridiculous.
If you didn't see, fuck that.
Ridiculous.
If you didn't see all your friends get shot,
Yes.
You know what they call that? If you go to a doctor, they call that post-traumatic stress disorder. Okay?
Yes.
Now, you know what normally what is normally prescribed for post-traumatic stress disorder?
Opiates, I imagine.
Nah, they give you antidepressants to stop you from killing yourself. Now, let me ask you. No, I'm almost done. Let me ask you one question. You ever heard of a motherfucker who smoked some weed and then killed himself? Did that ever happen? You know, what's the side effects? What's the side effects for the antidepressant drugs? You know what they are? Depression. And suicidal thoughts.
There are a lot of other drugs you were talking about with cocaine and crack and all of these other things. And
I want to do this. This is interesting because we find ourselves really close to the end of this show. However, I believe that your fellow poet, Miss Elizabeth Barrett-Browning, actually self-medicated with laudanum. Yes. And laudanum today is called what?
Opium. Isn't it opium?
Laudanum is, in fact, it's an
opiate.
Man,
yes.
Everybody know all them 18th century poets was getting high. How you think, what's the, who?
I was ill.
Not any different, I might add, from you.
It's like I get high, stay high. I got to do what I got to do, man.
But I'm saying to you that we talk about the similarities that I spoke about earlier. Maybe 2 shows ago, we were talking about the similarities between the two of you. And the fact is that you both used drugs, you both self-medicated so that you could escape from
weed ain't no
drug of your life.
Weed ain't no drug. That's a plant.
Okay.
Is that all you do is weed?
Listen, you want to meet up after the show, we can talk all about it.
But we did have, in many, many states, official government policies to sterilize people who we thought were unfit, and fortunately, that part of it has gone away.
And so
Most places.
What we find.
I'm sorry to see that.
I'm sure you are.
I'm sure you're sorry to see that, Justice Holmes. These past 2 weeks have been the most exciting conversations across time we've had thus far. I have so much enjoyed the wit and the artistry from you, Miss Browning, and from you, Mr. Shakur. It's been wonderful. And of course, I so much like to see the relics of a bygone era with your notion of superiority. And actually, you're not a relic because Scalia
and your friend, the uncle.
And your friend, Uncle Thomas, embody the notion of superiority that you, in fact, wrote 873 opinions for the Supreme Court to support. So I would invite you back another time, but I dare say I don't know where the conversation across time would lead us.
All right, so listen.
Thank you so much.
Before we go, because she's going to kill me if I don't do this, let me just give a shout out to my baby, Jada. I see you and Will. I appreciate y'all. Y'all doing it real big, and I just want you to know that's my homegirl from Baltimore all the way back. Jada. Love you, baby.
Jada Pinkett. We love her. And so this has been Conversations Across Time. Please join us next week for another interesting and controversial conversation across time. Thank you.
Conversations across time, 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 conversations across time. 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 Across time. Conversations across time. Conversations across